Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Real Talk for Real Teens, hosted by Kim Creighton, or as she's known by the people who know her best, Mama C. The show where we uniquely combine the information teens need with the entertainment teens want.
Welcome to another week of Real Talk for Real Teens. As you know, I'm Kim Creighton, your host of the show. This week we will be talking about scholarship basics, college scholarship basics. And the expert that I've brought on the show tonight is Jessica Johnson. She's the executive director of the Scholarship Academy. And I did this, guys, because so many of you are missing out on opportunities for scholarships. So many of you are waiting to the last minute to apply for things when you get your financial aid back and you realize that's not enough and the money's gone. So I brought Jessica on the show to tell you about what she's done and what she's doing for young people. So welcome, Jessica, and introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on. I'm Jessica Johnson, founder and executive director of the Scholarship Academy. We have the nation's only scholarship curriculum, which is incredibly exciting, and we specialize in helping students and families in general break down the scholarship process into realistic terms. We teach students how to make themselves stand out, how to research the money they have a stronger chance of winning, and then how to put together quality scholarship applications, and that's probably one of the most important pieces of our work, especially at this time during heavy scholarship application season.
Oh, okay. So there is a season. Okay, that's the first I've heard of that, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners have not heard about it. So I'm just going to let you dive right in, and then I'll stop you if I have any questions, if it's something we need to discuss further. But I definitely want to talk about this season, because if we're already heavy in, a lot of you guys are not even near the gates.
Right.
Well, first of all, tell us your story. Tell your story.
Okay. Well, I guess my story, I feel like it's about a decade or so in the making at this point, and there's definitely tons of students who've been able to have similar success. But I graduated from Howard University. Going into Howard, I had over $100,000 in scholarships, and by the time I finished up my master's, I ended up with over $200,000 in scholarship monies. And so what that means is I got a refund check every semester, and I try to break it down to students so that they...
Stop right there. A real refund check. Not a refund check that I got from a student loan, but you got real money in your pocket.
Right, that I did not have to pay back. And so what we tell our students is if you put in the 2 to 3 hours now, it can pretty much set you up where you don't have to work 15 to 20 hours a week when you're in college to try to be able to stay on the campus. And so I was just very fortunate to have parents that made it my job to figure out how I was going to pay for college, and I think that sets the tone for a lot of families. How parents talk to their kids about the process is really key. And so I didn't know that people's parents were taking out second mortgages on their homes and doing all these interesting things to help their kids fund college because I thought I had to pay for it.
Wow, a lot of things I talk about on this show are one of the reasons I do this show is because there's a lot of information I did not know, and I had to bump my head up against a lot of walls to learn some things. This is a person who has $132,000 in student loans, and of one thing. There are many reasons why I do the show, but basically it's those experiences that I really like to get young people not to have to experience because of information. And that was the only reason I was in the situation, because I didn't have the information.
Right.
So how does when someone comes to your how did your parents break? Because that's obviously not what just the only thing they told you were responsible for, because that's just not a conversation that you just come out of the blue or as in isolation. Were there other things in your family setting that they, because I'm going to a larger picture with this, were there other things in your family setting that you had to learn how to practice taking responsibility for yourself?
I mean, I guess I've just always been self-motivated, and a lot of parents say, okay, where did it come from? How did you get that way? I mean, I am from Jackson, Tennessee. It's a very small town in the west side of Tennessee, and I knew I didn't want to stay there. And so for me, that was honestly a big piece of it was that I traveled, my family and I traveled a lot, so I knew there was more out there for me and that Tennessee couldn't contain me. And, I mean, my parents used the scare tactic to an extent, so both of my parents are educators, both of my grandparents were educators, but for my mom, I mean, she was kind of hardcore. We always talked about college, and that was just one of the things that we did as a family. It was a part of our dinner conversations. It was, it was related to homework assignments. Like I heard college. And so we were driving one day having a regular conversation about college, and I told her, I might be thinking about Harvard, Yale, and so she politely drove to the bank, printed out her bank statement, and said, we don't have the money to send you there. And so then I got scared because up until that point in my life, I really thought that, we were middle-income family, we were comfortable, we were doing well, and then I was like, oh, my God, we're poor. And so it kind of shocked me into saying, okay, I don't want my educational dreams to be a burden on my parents' finances. And that was really it for me. I've always had a gift for leadership and helping other people identify their own leadership potentials, and I volunteered a lot in my community, and it just had this passion that I guess was contagious in a sense, because I would always recruit my friends to get involved in whatever activity that I was engaged in at the time. I had a radio talk show when I was 14 to 15, and I'd have my friends come on the show on the weekends, and so I just kept finding ways to do the things I already loved to do and use those things and those gifts to help other people. And when people ask me what's the winning scholarship secret, that's it, like finding a way to use your gifts, your talents, your resources in a way that can address a need in your community. Because if you think about the types of people who serve on scholarship committees, they're givers, they're philanthropists in their own right, and so they connect better with students who have that same kind of passion for helping others.
Wow, you've said so much, and that's why I love the way I have this show set up, because you've touched on a lot of topics that are not scholarship specific, and that's why I kind of wanted you to go with this, because the main reason for this show is to help successful transition from adolescence to adulthood. And one of the main reasons, ways you're going to do that is to take personal responsibility for your choices, your actions, and your words, and all those kind of things. And then you touched on being exposed beyond your community. You touched on the fact that your mom had an honest conversation with you about money. She took you. A lot of parents, that ain't none of your business. I mean, to this day, my dad won't tell me if there's enough money to bury him, because that ain't my business. So
wow.
people are having honest conversations about money. So kids, and then you have kids who are walking around in $100 shoes, yet their parents have no clue on how they're going to pay for college or how they're college for kids. And so, again, you've touched on a lot of different things. And, again, I love how this show just rolls, because there are so many nuggets there that I can just extract and move forward with. And they need to hear this. Young people need to hear everything you're saying. I mean, the fact that that scholarship committees are looking for people who are doing service. And that was the one thing that I found when people come to me, because I just left being a high school teacher, asking me for recommendations. I'm not going to lie. And a lot of these things, scholarships that you're applying for, you don't qualify because you've done nothing.
Right.
You have not been of service to anybody. It's like you got to get in there and you got to be doing something.
Yeah, and I think that's really key. You have to have something to write about at the very, very core. And the competition is so much more difficult than it was even 3 to 5 years ago because, there's been a lot of shifts in the whole financial aid market in general, and people just really aren't paying attention to what's happening. So you've got some of these major scholarship programs like Target, like General Motors, like Tylenol. They're shifting their programs. They're cutting back. Discover Card gave away their scholarship for 20 years. Last year they stopped the program. So you have these big opportunities that are no longer in existence. And then you have families who used to be able to write the checks to pay for their child's education, and they're telling their kid, you better apply for scholarships because our finances have changed. We paid for private school for 12 years, and now you need to figure out how you're going to pay for college. And so you have an influx of applicants and fewer resources being added to the pool, and so that makes the competition incredibly thick. And you're not going to get $10,000 for Christmas caroling at a nursing home or doing canned food drives. It's not going to happen in 2013. So if that's all you have on your resume, it's time to revamp it and revamp it quickly. Honestly, the students that I'm seeing win the big scholarship dollars are starting to do international projects because we have so much access now. We've had kids who helped build schools in Ecuador, and so your Christmas Caroling project is no match for somebody who's been in Ecuador and rebuilt an entire school. And so we have to change our thinking about what service looks like.
Exactly, and you have to also understand that you're competing with the world.
Mhm.
It's not just your local. There might be some local scholarships or some community things, but the money that you need to be going after, those are things that people from around the world are competing at, or they have access or exposure to something beyond the borders of what you might be used to.
Absolutely.
So let's start this conversation about. Okay, go ahead. What were you about to say?
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, let's start this conversation about the season. So let's talk about that. What is that? What's the scholarship season?
So, the scholarship application process pretty much happens in waves. So October, November, December are really, and then this part of January are like the big bucks. This is when you got your Coca-Colas, your Gates, your Elks Most Valuable Students. This is the $20,000 and up scholarship cycle right now. And when Gates happens, I believe it's due next week, then you'll see a shift. And basically late January through mid-March are going to be really heavy local scholarship deadline months. So that's when you got your sorority and fraternity scholarships, your professional associations, your community foundations, and students kind of got to ride the way. So if you haven't kind of at least mapped out a scholarship plan by the end of this month, you're really, I guess if just to put it in perspective, you're giving yourself about 4 months to come up with $200,000, and that makes no sense.
Wow, okay, you have my mind racing here. Okay, so when you're saying the major money is in October, November, December, this part of January, right? So is one of the requirements that you already know what school you're going to?
No, you don't have to have a school selected yet, and that's a huge misconception. There's scholarships out there for second graders, and so I don't know why we keep setting ourselves up and setting young people up to wait until the last minute and hope something is going to work out. And they just hope a lot of families just let the whole financial aid process happen to them, and we've totally got to shift that and say start early, have a plan. I got my first scholarship at the beginning of my junior year in high school. It was $20,000. Okay, and so by the time I finished my junior year, I had almost $50,000 in scholarship money. And then I didn't get accepted to Howard until Christmas of my senior year, but I pretty much knew where most of my money was going to come from before I got accepted.
So you don't have to wait for ACT scores, SAT scores, none of that?
No, absolutely not.
And so if they're not going on those kind of things. Oh, yeah, because a lot of it is service. It's not about grades.
Mhm.
Wow, that just was just a big aha for me. So let's talk about what these young people, if you had you just said second grade. Okay, because I was going to say, if you had a freshman in high school, if you are a freshman in high school, tell me what you'd be doing as a freshman, as a sophomore, as a junior, as a senior at this point, because we're at almost the middle of January. definitely for seniors, what do they need to be doing?
Oh, I mean, a little prayer if they haven't started. But
and I'm going to be honest. At the high school I was in, a lot of inner city urban youth are not applying for this until they get their financial aid packet back, which doesn't come back sometimes until March, April.
Mhm.
And then they're running around because they don't, and so their only option is loans. Or they're banking on, or they think that Pell Grant and all those federal things, Hope Scholarship, they think that's just like the bread and butter. That's just the best thing. And that is just kind of like a given, because if you have grades, they'll give it to you. We're talking about doing something above and beyond that.
Right. So, I mean, a lot of families think about Pell. So average college tuition is going to be about $25,000 per year. Right, and Pell, the maximum Pell is $5,550. So you already got a huge gap there that you're trying to close if you're relying on Pell Grant money.
And is it public or private?
That's for public schools. Now, private schools,
$25,000?
Mhm.
Oh my God! Go ahead.
$25,000. Private schools, I mean, I have seen them go as high as the 60s. I believe NYU is in the $60,000 range. And so we really can't rely on the same types of standard financial aid packages. And even with loans, there's a maximum amount that you can take out in loans. Once you reach that max, it's going to be hard to figure out how to close the gaps. And a lot of kids aren't able to go to their top school choice, or if they get in there, they're only able to stay a year and a half, and then they're coming home because they're not able to close the gaps in their financial aid packages. And so that's really the message that we've got to send. When we're looking at college graduation rates, kids are coming home because they don't have a clear financial plan of how they're going to stay there for all 4 years. All it takes is the tuition to increase by 5%, and you're going to come home. And colleges are not being lenient in terms of waiting. They will set up payment plans, but, I mean, they are really packing kids up and sending them home like I've never seen before.
Wow, that's major. And that's just, and I'm glad you were saying that, because in such a harsh way, because that's just the reality. And I know, and I think it's next week, a young lady named Frances will be on the show. I believe it's my next week's show. And she's coming on here just to talk about these kind of things, because she was a valedictorian of the class when she graduated. And she had to come home for financial reasons. She went to the school of her choice, but that didn't mean anything. She struggled the whole time she was there. We, as teachers, were sending her care packages just so she could survive.
Right. And, I mean, I guess it really is across the board. Then, I mean, I literally almost dread the beginning and the end of every semester because my phone won't stop ringing. Somebody has passed my cell phone number around Howard, so, of course, I get a lot of Howard students calling saying they have last-minute financial issues. But then students that I have worked with 2 and 3 years ago, I got a text message from a mom really late Friday night saying they needed $3,000 more by Monday. And, you know, my heart really goes out to these families because you do so much to prepare your child. You're doing the SAT and the ACT prep. You're making sure they're in the right programs. You're running them back and forth to all these practices and events. And then this one huge piece of the puzzle hasn't really been fully thought out. Like I think that, you know, families aggressively plan and prepare for SAT and ACT prep, but they don't do the same kind of strategy planning for the financial piece of it because, I mean, there's just a lot of misconceptions thinking, oh, okay, they're going to get full Pell or they're going to get HOPE, and then they realize that because of one grade, they're not HOPE eligible. And so there's so many factors that surprise parents that if we just had a little more time, started a little earlier, and asked the right questions early enough, you could have an actual plan to prevent some of those circumstances.
So you just said 2 things, and I want you to talk further on them. You said start earlier, so my question is, when would that be? And then your second, I forgot the second question you said. You said start earlier, and then you just said something else. It'll come to me. But so just talk about the what is the start earlier? What is, because I really want to get young people to start thinking from this show a plan. So if you're a freshman, if you're a sophomore, if you're a junior, if you're a senior, what's your plan? So where do we go?
Right. Well, I mean, I think Georgia College 401 is an awesome resource because it forces students to kind of think through some of those pieces in the timeline. I mean, of course, ninth grade is a critical time where you're kind of getting.
Stop right there. We're not going to assume anything. So what's Georgia, whatever you just said, 411?
So Georgia College 411, the website is just gacollege411.org, and it's pretty much the whole college planning portal for the state of Georgia. And so that's where you find out the information about the Georgia Hope Scholarship and whether or not you're Hope eligible and all of the other state-based grants that are available. But you also can use it as a resource to research colleges, to map out a plan, and research some scholarships that are available in the state of Georgia. And so every student is supposed to have a Georgia College 401 account, and their high school is supposed to set it up just so that they can keep track of this whole process, because there's so many moving pieces that you need at least one place to have as a go-to source where you're collecting all of your data over the years. So I would start there for ninth graders. By 10th grade, there really needs to be some kind of concerted effort to think about top college choices and potential majors. And then after 10th grade, no summer should be free. Summer research opportunities, summer programs on college campuses. You really kind of want to set the tone, because when scholarship committees are looking at your resume, they're trying to see how serious are you about what your intended field of study in colleges too. So if you want to be an engineer and you just woke up yesterday and decided you want to be an engineer, I might not be willing to take a gamble on you if I'm with the Atlanta Association of Black Engineers, for instance. But if since ninth grade you've been in math and science programs, you're on the robotics team, I want to help you because you already have a solid foundation in that engineering space. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
You're trying to connect the dots. So from a scholarship committee perspective, I'm really trying to pretty much put the pieces together like a puzzle. So if you say you want to do one thing, I'm looking at your grades in that space. So I probably don't believe you if you say you want to be an engineer and all your math and science grades are D's and F's, right? I feel like you're not quite there yet, and I'm not going to be willing to put my money towards that. However, if you have, engaged in tutoring, summer programs, other resources, then I'm much more, then I get it. I can follow your path, and then I can make a case to other people in the committee and say, I feel confident enough in this student's passion, in their capabilities, and in their desire to leave an impact on the field because of these 5 activities they've been engaged in over the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you're saying, I just want to make sure we get this clear. You're saying after starting the summer between sophomore year and junior year, you need to be doing something. It is not sitting on your butt playing video games.
Absolutely, and it's not working at a fast food restaurant, killing time, making minimum wage. If you're going to work, if students are going to have jobs, then at the very least they need to be working at places that will also invest in their future. So there are a number of fast food restaurants and other establishments that hire teenagers, but they also invest in their education. So that's like a Chick-fil-A, that's a McDonald's, that's a Walmart, Starbucks. And so if they have to have a job, make sure that it's a place that's also going to support their future.
And that does not negate, though, making contact with some business, though, when you're not working. If this is so important like you're saying it is, and you're setting up that history or that path that a scholarship committee person is going to follow, that you need to spend at least, start networking and maybe volunteer as an intern for 2 hours a week or something, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's it. It's mapping out from that summer, every semester, what you're going to do. And normally what you want to do is think about it from three perspectives. Academically, what are you going to do to position yourself for college and for scholarship dollars? Professionally or, career-wise, what is something that you can do that semester or that summer to put you in a position? And then from a civic perspective, what is something you can do that's going to leverage your scholarship profile? And so if you're thinking from those three main categories, then ultimately it's going to help you be more well-rounded. So by the time you reach junior and senior year, you have something to talk about.
Okay. So you're in your junior year, now what?
So junior year is already heavy application mode. So here in the Atlanta area, for instance, Nordstrom has a $10,000 scholarship for high school juniors, and it's due in May. And so it's based on community service activities you've done prior to that point. So there's tons of essay competitions that students can do now. There's even video competitions and blogs that students that I've seen pop up. So C-SPAN has a video competition that's due, I believe, at the end of the month. And the question is just something simple like, what's the most important message that the president should be focusing on for this term or something like that. And so, you can start practicing. So you don't want your senior year to be the first time that you've had to put together a quality application. You want to really, really use sophomore and junior year to get the practice out your system so that you're not in panic mode, it's not an emergency, and you're getting better and better with each submission.
Okay. And so that's junior year, and then senior year is what? Because it seems like everything is just already,
Well, so the beautiful thing about starting early is that you're able to build your resume. So the first two scholarships that I won the Discover Card Tribute Award and React Magazine, which is affiliated with Parade Magazine. So that was $45,000 between those two scholarships my junior year. I put those on my resume as awards. So they didn't know what I got from Discover Card, but the fact that Discover Card recognized me alone built up my credibility. So by the time I got ready to apply for some of the bigger bucks, when I was a senior, I already had a really solid foundation, and scholarship programs were looking at me a little more seriously. I had increased my competition level, essentially, because I already had those on my resume as awards that I had received.
Okay, guys, I want to make sure what I'm getting here, because this is not like the scholarships that you guys are probably used to seeing. These are not these needs-based scholarships. So
right.
What she's going after, people who are giving $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 aren't giving you money based on the fact that you don't have any. They're giving you money based on the fact of your potential to, if they invest in you, your potential to move forward with whatever that is.
Right. And even if it is a scholarship that's based on financial need, guess what? Everyone that applies has a pretty similar need to your own. So you still have to figure out what's so great about you that somebody would want to give you their $5,000, their $10,000, their $100,000.
Well, I just wanted to bring that up because everybody always thinks of scholarships as needs-based, and they're not. A lot of scholarships you're saying are based on professions, skills, interest, service to people, that kind of thing. Everything is not based on financial need. Two things that I wanted to ask you was, can you categorize or can you group kinds of scholarships? Is there a group for, what are the different, that's what I'm saying, categories of scholarships? Because I've heard you say essays, service, and
Oh, sure. So there's 5 main types of students that scholarship programs are looking for, and your job is to figure out which, we call them scholarship profiles at the Scholarship Academy. So either students are going to be what we call the community service guru, so that's a lot, we've been talking a lot about that, the whole service profile. They're going to be an outstanding leader, and so there's a ton of scholarships available out there for students who demonstrate outstanding leadership. There's the overcomer, a student who's had to overcome a lot of obstacles, and so like Ronald McDonald House Charities is a good example of a scholarship program that's looking for students who've had to overcome some type of obstacle. Then there's that kind of the great creator, we like to call him, the student who has some kind of special talent. That could be athletic, that could be dance, that could be gospel choir, whatever it is. They're excelling in that area. And then there's the academic achiever. So out of those 5, what students need to do is figure out which category they would most likely win under, and then build themselves up so nobody can beat them in that category. So although
you're not trying to spread yourself thin and be in every jack of all trades. You're trying to find. Okay, I get you. So you're not trying to say, oh yeah, I'm good. I can sing, and I got to be in that class. And my parents were killed in a car accident or something. You're trying to find that one space that you can dominate.
Right. And that doesn't mean that the other categories can't supplement your main scholarship profile. So I graduated high school with a 3.98 GPA, but I was the community service guru. So hands down, nobody was going to beat me when it came to a scholarship based on community service, because that was my thing. I mean, it got to the point in my hometown where my friends literally asked me to stop applying for scholarships so they could win some, because they knew they weren't going to beat me if it was a scholarship based on community service, because that's just what I did. And it helped, I'm sure. I probably was able to get extra points in the GPA category because I had a high GPA, but I wasn't relying on that to put me over the top. And in fact, the only scholarship that I received that was based on my GPA was the scholarship I won from Howard.
Okay, and that came from the school. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh wow! And so, this is a lot to digest, kid. This is young people. This is a lot. I mean, my brain is. I wish I had a scholarship academy when I was going up, because I had no concept of, I had that conversation. Well, it wasn't even a conversation. I knew I was going to college. That was always a given. So graduating high school was always a given. Going to college was always a given. Funding it was never a conversation. Never.
Wow.
And that conversation, I'm going to tell you, you are the minority. Your experience is the minority, and that's what, well, especially in urban communities, let's put it that way. That's the minority. Everybody's proud that you graduated in high school and you got accepted to college, and then the next question is, how are we going to pay for this? But then at that point, you're already a senior.
Yeah, and I guess that's sad to hear, and I hadn't thought about the fact that nobody talks about it. And I guess the fact that hasn't changed over the years is probably the most disappointing part for me. I think that a lot of high schools do that typical senior financial aid night where they do the PowerPoint presentation and they say, this is, a subsidized loan and this is an unsubsidized loan and here's the website for FAFSA, and then that might be it. And that's probably right. And we wonder why kids are so confused and why they are frustrated in their coming home, and there aren't a lot of options. Once you come home, it's so hard to get back on those campuses. I guess I'm just grateful that Scholarship Academy has a platform to at least be a voice and say that there's so much out there that you could take advantage of, because you definitely just put that in perspective for me.
Oh yeah, and as I'm sitting here talking again, this is so, as I told you, it's very organic. I really would like to partner with you on some things, because this is huge. You are just blowing my mind with this, because again, this very bright young lady has had to come home because she can't. And I never understood. I'm like, she's a valedictorian. How does a valedictorian not get a full ride to college? I don't understand that. When I was going to school, a valedictorian didn't have that was what? You don't have to think about anything. You were going at least undergraduate. And so I'm thinking of, she's one of how many young people who we keep telling, especially with the Common Core curriculum that, all these states have adopted nationwide, so that the goal is to be college or career ready. Okay, you can be college ready. That's great, but are you going to stay in college?
Right.
No one's having that conversation, and you're really just getting me with what that is. And that's, I mean, the numbers of our young people who are coming home are overwhelming after that freshman year. And most people, and before this, I'm going to tell you, before this conversation, I was thinking it was because they couldn't handle it academically. But now I'm wondering what's the percentage of it is not being able to adjust to the college environment, and how much is actually about money.
I'm actually sitting here looking now. There's a young man that was at Howard last semester, and he's kind of taken a different approach to being able to stay on Howard's campus. And so I met him when I was on campus last semester, but he has a $14,000 balance. He's from Greenville, North Carolina, and he actually went to one of those crowd fundraising sites. So his story now is on the MTVU website, and he's asking 4,000 people to give him $4 from 4,000 people so that he can go back to Howard. And I mean, I admire students who take the matters into their own hands and say, well, fine, if I can't get it the traditional way, let me go to some of these new innovative ways to see if we can raise money. And I mean, I read his story last night, and I posted it on all of our social media pages. I'm going to personally give him, what I can afford to give towards getting him back on campus. And I mean, I guess I hope that we as a community will start taking heed and look at how we can help students who deserve to be on those campuses stay there. And if it means that we have to band together and say, okay, I can give him $100 towards his goal and negotiate with someone at Howard to knock that balance down, whatever it is that we have to do, I kind of feel like there's no one magical solution for this issue. It has to be addressed from a number of perspectives. One is tuition is just way too high, and, there's no real regulation on how much colleges can increase tuition from year to year. I mean, so I'll be honest, I love my alma mater, but right now Howard is exactly 51% more expensive than it was when I graduated from there in 2004. And so that's
huge.
Not
even 10 years. That's not 10 years. That is not
exactly.
10 years. And so I'm gonna put up something because this is something I was looking at. When the numbers of the dropout rates for Georgia high school came out, some of the statistics they said 58% of all jobs in Georgia will require some post-secondary training beyond high school by the year 2018. And then they were saying education pays, the medium. If you have a bachelor's degree, it's $1,061 a week. High school diploma, it's $638 a week. And if you dropped out, it's $451 a week. Now think about that. And then I look at, because I pulled up the Chronicle for Higher Education, and I'm looking at which one am I looking at right here? Just Georgia. I'm just looking at Georgia and how we fare as in graduation rates and or dropout. And some of us, the rate overall is 24% of us graduate within 4 years, but 51% graduate in 6 years.
Wow.
And that's overall. So I didn't even break it down for ethnicity or for race. And those are things that people aren't talking about. So it's like you definitely need something beyond high school to compete. But no one's talking about how that's going to get paid for. And so,
and I think
go ahead.
The story. I'm sorry. And I think too, no one's talking about it because there was an assumption that it was okay for people to accumulate loans because that was considered good debt.
Oh God, I feel for that one.
And I think now that the student loan default rates have outpaced the housing foreclosure crisis, they're starting to rethink, maybe there's no such thing as good debt. And so we really got to be more vocal about how this impacts people's lives over we're talking decades. We're talking it could literally take someone 20 years after they graduate from college to be able to pay back that education. And however much that loan payment is each month coming out of their salary is ultimately taking away from their ability to reinvest some of those funds in the economy.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, because literally there is no way of being a teacher when I was in the capacity of a teacher that I would pay off my loans in my lifetime. That was not going to happen. Just by the simple fact that I was teaching when I started 5 years ago, I ended up making less at the end than when I started, based on not getting a raise, based on insurance premiums going up, based on all kinds of things. Where I started was less than where I ended. There was no way that I was going to pay off. And I'm going to tell you, and this people laugh, my mom and my friends laugh at me because one of the reasons I became an entrepreneur is I cannot wait until that day when I can call Sallie Mae and say, excuse me, what is my payoff amount, and wire them the money. That to me would be, I have so arrived.
Right. And that's
sad.
I guess that's sad. And then also when you think about all of the things that you haven't put your money towards that could have been beneficial. So I guess my story was the exact opposite. Probably 6 months after I graduated from Howard, I didn't owe them a thing, and so I was able to create a scholarship in the School of Communications and give money back to the journalism department because I didn't owe them anything, and I left there feeling great about my experience and wanting to see how I could give back so other people could have that same experience. And
instead of dreading that 6 months when you got that 6 month grace period before Sallie Mae comes knocking on your door saying, hey, buddy, it's about time for you to start paying that up.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, I mean, this is really affecting so many. Not only how young people coming back right after going to college, but, just that long-term. Student loans are the one thing that I think is, truly affecting people long-term because, bottom line, if I foreclose on a home, I can file bankruptcy and get rid of that. You cannot get rid of Sallie Mae.
Right.
This is the one debt they're going to take. They're going to try to, people who owe them, this is something you cannot get from under. You have to figure out a way to get it done. And then some people, how their parents have set up how they co-sign these loans, and it's unfortunately, even if this young person, let's say, dies, you help fund your child's education, they're 30, 40, and they pass away. Now you're responsible for that debt.
And and they may not have even received a degree. so that's the other part of it. It's like you owe $20,000, but you only made it through sophomore year. And that's the other part that's so discouraging, and you can't get into another school to try to obtain a degree because you're not going to be able to get your transcripts. And I just really feel like there's so many roadblocks that invisible and highly visible roadblocks along this whole path that I feel like it's going to, I hate to say it, but more government intervention because just the horror stories that I hear every semester, it's not fair, and we've got to do something.
Well, let's talk about we only have 15 minutes left. This went by really quickly. Let's talk about the application part. What does a application entail? How should people start figuring this out? What should they be doing? That kind of thing.
So, now a lot of the scholarship applications are going to be online, and they're going to require students to submit online. And the biggest tip I have for that is make sure that you always do a Word version of the application before you try to submit online because grammar. Unfortunately, a lot of young people really make some huge grammatical errors. And so, especially for the scholarships that I invest my personal money in, my general rule of thumb is if there's a grammatical error within the first two paragraphs, I throw your application away because if you didn't take the time, I'm not going to waste my time. And I'm an incredibly compassionate person, but it's my money. and I want to invest in students who are pursuing excellence. And so if you didn't take the time to click spell check, I'm not confident that you're quite ready for the rigor of a college experience. Okay?
Wow.
So,
yes.
and yeah, that's just the bottom line truth for that part of it, but also thinking about what you're going to write about. A lot of students have great stories that they're afraid to share, or they aren't able to articulate in a way that is creative enough that I really connect to them, because ultimately I need to connect to you in some kind of way within your application. And a lot of students don't think about who they're writing for. And so an essay that you would write for, let's say, a sorority scholarship is going to be different from the essay you would write for the Society of Women Engineers, because their core values are very different. And so you always want to be thinking about who's on the committee, what do they care about, and how can I prove to them that I fit into their core values. Because ultimately I'm going to give my money to somebody that reminds me of me. And a lot of times students totally miss that, and they write a really, really great essay that they would get an A in English class for. But there's a huge difference between writing well and writing competitively. So you really want to make sure that you are speaking directly to the type of person that is going to be reviewing your application and proving to them that you're a perfect fit for their requirements. And that starts with looking at their website, reading their vision.
I was just about to say that. When people ask me for reference letters, and I tell them, so give me because I need to know, if I'm writing a reference letter, I need to know who I'm sending it to. They don't know a name and address. They don't know what the scholarship is. They just know that it's free money. So they have no idea, even if they would qualify, even if it's in their, because just because someone is giving you money, that doesn't mean that it's in your core values. Because if you're a gun control, if you believe in gun control, why are you applying for a scholarship from the NRA?
Right.
You know, or all kinds of things. And that's something I really come across when I'm asking questions to make so that I can make sense when I'm writing your recommendation letter. When you have no clue on what this organization is, what the scholarship is for, it's basic research.
Right. And I mean, that shows in the application if you don't know a thing about my organization, because sometimes students, copy and paste letters, and they may accidentally leave another scholarship program's name in that. I can take personal offense to that, because if you don't know who I am, you surely don't need my money. And so it's those little things that students kind of leave out, and making sure that you follow directions. So a lot of them will say, okay, you've uploaded your application, but we need you to have your school mail an official transcript. And so or mail the recommendation letters, and they have to be signed. Or I've seen some be as specific as the recommendation letter has to be double-spaced. They're saying those things for a reason. They're trying to see if you can follow directions. And if you can't, a lot of times they're going to take points off, or they're going to completely eliminate your application because, again, you're not ready.
So how much time does it take to put in your when you're doing a word some kind of word processing document to put double space? Not very hard.
Right. And so little things like forgetting to put your name on the top of each page, or not having a postmark by the appropriate deadline date. I mean, scholarship, there's enough students out there that are hungry for the money that they're not going to call and say, sweetheart, you forgot to sign, your application, or we didn't get your transcript. They're not going to do that. They're just going to throw your application away. And so I think, again, starting early enough so that you can create your own checklist, and for every family it's different. So some families do the huge flip charts and stick them up on the wall, and I've seen them color-coded and all these really awesome things. Some people have the file folder with pretty much everything ready to go. You already got your recommendation letters. You ask for 10 copies of your official transcript in advance, and you're just adding the essay and dropping it in the mail. Some families like to do it electronically, so they might create a Google Calendar, and everybody might get a text message when something's due. so that nobody forgets and everybody's on task. But you just need to find a system that works for your family. And I'm saying family because a lot of times parents try to be standoffish with this part of the process and say, I want them to take ownership of it. You'll literally pay for that, literally pay for it if you don't have an active role in this process. And so even though I was self-motivated, I had to spend 3 to 5 hours every week doing something related to my college and scholarship process. I could not go out on the weekend until I showed my father what I had done that week. That was 3 to 5 hours worth of time related to my college and scholarship process. And they were that strict about it, but I put in the 3 hours. I made $200,000, and now this is what I do for a living. So I thank them every day that they were that structured about this process.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah, like I said, you've had a very unique experience, and that's another thing I like to talk about in the show. Is everybody comes from a different place. Just because there's so many people who never get out of their communities to never see anything else, and just because you stayed in your little community, there are people you're going to be competing with who've experienced the world. So just because you don't have a worldview, that doesn't mean that your competition doesn't. And that makes you at a disadvantage. Now, I understand that some families aren't, able to go, on these great vacations, but get on a bus and go somewhere. Experience something. If not only, I think, this popped in my head, for a service project, or, that could be a part just to get out of your community. You have a destination to go to. You have a reason to get out of your community. You have a reason to broaden your horizons. You have a reason to, like my mom would take, she was assistant principal of a high school in Chicago, and after Katrina, every spring break, they would go down and help build houses. So those young people were able to get out of that community just by doing that service project. There are a lot of things, just like you said, someone was building houses, school in, where'd you say?
In Ecuador.
Yeah. There are a lot of opportunities to get beyond what you know. Again, this is great. I'm seeing that this scholarship process is a great opportunity to practice not only taking personal responsibility and helping you with that whole transition from adolescence to adulthood when you're going to be held responsible for your actions, but it gives you that time to practice to expose yourself to different things. If you don't do anything but go to the library and get on the Internet and start researching the world.
Right. At least it's a start.
Yeah, it's something. This has been wow. So in the last few minutes, what would you? I'm just floored. In the last few minutes, what would you like to say? How would you like to sum? Please tell people how to get in touch with you. Again, young people, I really will be working. I am committing to do some things with Scholarship Academy so that you guys can be, your organization can be highlighted, and also some young people can be exposed to what you do. So what do you have to say in the last bit of the show?
I guess just to encourage young people to take ownership of this process and just be as proactive as possible, because it's a lot harder to fix it when it becomes an emergency situation. And I think that comes from sitting down, talking to guidance counselors, making sure that they know that you're interested in this process, because there are some awards they can nominate you for, asking them what scholarships they've received in their office, and making this a priority. I think a lot of times you get caught up in the hustle and bustle of like extra school activities. If it's not helping you get to your next level, and that's college, career, scholarship opportunities, you really need to buckle down, especially for my seniors, and come up with a plan to shift your priority so that this is the main thing that you're working on at least through the end of March, so that you're not disappointed and you work so hard to get where you disappointed and not able to basically pursue your top college choice. And then I guess I'll just say, Scholarship Academy is definitely here as a resource. You can follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. We've been posting scholarship stuff all like crazy, because this is a heavy time and people are starting to send us upcoming opportunities for us to share with our network, and we love to do do that. We do teach a class in the office, so if you feel like it's just overwhelming, you can come and we have scholarship boot camp classes where either myself or one of our scholarship ambassadors will sit down with you and help you map out that plan and talk to parents, because I just feel like we need to demystify the whole process for families and make it easier for them to understand, break it down into steps that are achievable, so that we can really help some students go to college without going into debt. Of course, our website is www.scholarshipacademy.org. That's www.scholarshipacademy.org, and our Facebook page is facebook.com/The Scholarship Academy. And just, connect with us. I'm very approachable. Like I say, we have an office here. I travel all over the country, but most people have my cell phone, and that's probably not a good thing. But what they do, because I want families to be able to reach and engage with us in a meaningful way. Our office number is 770-391-9500, and if you didn't take anything else away from today, you've got to have some type of plan. Now is absolutely the time to sit down and do the number crunching and come up with a plan to tackle this scholarship process.
Okay, and so in the last few minutes, you were talking about a plan. If you are a senior, I want you guys to listen up. If you are a senior, Jessica, when they wake up in the morning, give me one thing that they need to do, something concrete that they need to do when they wake up in the morning. If they have not started this process, what is the one thing they need to do?
The first thing they need to do when they wake up is shut down that Facebook page and instead use that time and maybe just take the first 20 minutes of every morning and do some research. Georgia College 411 is a good place to start. AtlantaScholarships.com for students that are in the Atlanta area is also a good place to start for scholarship information. And then think about, what is it that they want to study. Look and see if there's professional associations in the area related to their field of study. So the Georgia Engineering Foundation, for instance, called me last year. They only had 5 applicants for a $5,000 scholarship from students across the whole state of Georgia that want to study engineering. Wow. So take the time and try to find the money that nobody else is looking for. That should be the first thing you do every day. And think about, okay, how can I be strategic and think about what dollars aren't people looking for? So Children's Hospital gives scholarships for students that want to go into healthcare. Try to be creative. Think outside the box of who might want to give you money to support your educational dreams. And then start writing those essays because, again, you got to be in it to win it. So if you don't have a career goals essay, make that a priority for this first week. If you don't have an essay about a time when you demonstrated outstanding leadership, make that a priority for next week. If you don't have one about your community service project where you had a meaningful impact, then definitely by the end of the month, you got to get those 3 main essays done, and then talk to people about your recommendation letters. So those would be the main things that I would say for my seniors, but you just got to get up and do. I can't stress it enough. I want you to feel like it's an emergency if you're listening to this show right now, because it is right now.
Yeah, exactly. I totally feel it. And so, wow, I totally feel it. Again, this show is about providing you the buffet. It is about, when you go to Old Country Buffet, there's a whole bunch of stuff on there, but the majority of you people stay in one area. You eat chicken wings and don't even touch anything else. And then when you say, so why aren't you down there? Because I don't like it. Well, have you ever had down there? Have you ever experienced down there? No, I like chicken wings. Well, how do you know that you don't like the other stuff if you haven't experienced it? So this is what this show is about, experiencing other things. And I'm so happy and I'm thankful that you agreed to come on, Jessica, because this has been an enlightening information for me. I just really, I learned so much by doing this show, and this has just been really big because, again, I'm really now starting to think about when they're talking about young people coming home from college, how many are actually coming home because academics, how many coming home because they just couldn't hack or, the school wasn't right for them. But what is the percentage of coming home because they cannot afford it and because there was no plan put in place? Now, that right there is shameful. I think that's shameful. Now that I know what I know based on what you've told me, that should not happen. Because if a young person wants to be there, they should have figured out a process, given enough time. Because you're saying this can start in second grade. Given enough time, we could figure out the process. But again, like myself, like I said, I didn't even know there was a process out there.
Right. Well, we're just doing our part to at least educate and inform and inspire. And, I mean, it's really up to families to take it from there.
Well, thank you again, Jessica, for being on the show. Guys, get out there. If you have not started, get started and make it a priority. It is an emergency. If that's what you need to do, if you plan on going to college, it needs to be paid for. So you need to figure out you and your families need to figure out how it's going to be paid for. So thank you, Jessica. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming on. I hope to have you on again. Again, I am making a commitment that this show will do is what we can to support the Scholarship Academy. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. That was wonderful. So I'm just going to say goodbye and see you next week.
Thank you for listening, and please join us each and every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern for more Real Talk for Real Teens.